Becoming a master of something takes 10,000 hours. Like, you've heard that saying before, right? That's a lot of hours, by the way. That's 416 days of non-stop work on something to become a master. And most people don't become a master at like even one thing. Well, actually, that's not really true, because the average person spends 2 hours and 25 minutes procrastinating each day. And by the way, this was an older study based on adults, right? And let's be honest, we all know that we procrastinate way more than the average adult right now. If they spend 2 hours and 25 minutes, that's 55 days a year. Well, that's over 100,000 hours in your lifetime if you live to 80. You could have mastered 10 different skills in the amount of time you procrastinate. The thing is, as I just said, we can all safely assume that we procrastinate more than the average adult. As students, procrastination is the #1 killer of academic performance and grades. It's not that we don't know what to do. Like, we know how to study, we know what we should be doing. It's not like we don't have the resources or the knowledge. You've watched enough JSpark videos to understand like what it is you need to do, that you shouldn't really scroll and you should be doing studying instead. But it's just a matter of procrastination. It's that thing that stops you from actually doing the right things. The scientific definition of procrastination is voluntarily delaying an intended course of action despite knowing that the delay will exacerbate circumstances. So basically, you understand it will make your life worse, but you do it anyway. It's basically a form of self-harm. Scrolling when you know you should be studying. Playing video games when you know you should be doing homework. But the definition that I like of procrastination the most is procrastination is when the present version of yourself clashes with your future version. Future you right now knows you should be studying. It will help you get better grades and it will make your life in the long run a couple of % better. Do it for future you. It's going to be hard right now, but it's going to pay off because it's going to get you one step closer to the job, you're going to get the better grades, etc. But present you right now just wants to do the instant gratification and choose the easy path out. But as Sensei Wu said, do not put off. But as Sensei Wu said,
never put off until tomorrow what can be done today.
I've definitely not beat procrastination fully, far from it, but the change I've made is amazing. Finally, I feel like I removed like that big chain board that was tying my ankles down and I could finally like run fully. And I'll give you that key. Firstly, why do we procrastinate? There's 3 main causes: choosing instant gratification over long-term gain, disliking the task we must complete, and thirdly, believing that we're going to fail. So let's start with the first one. Procrastination is a habit like anything else, and habits are formed when an action is linked with a reward. The sugar you feel while eating chocolate is linked, and so you form the habit of like eating chocolate. You feel that sense of excitement and happiness and maybe like stimulation when you do like drugs or like play video games, so that all becomes a habit. With procrastination, scrolling right now or playing video games or doing something else seems more attractive because there's instant gratification and the reward is like right in front of us. On the other hand of that, we have delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is like, as the name suggests, when the reward is in the future. Studying right now, the reward will come in like 3 months when you do the exam, or maybe even later than that when you like get the job that you want. It's very, very hard, therefore, because our brain doesn't actually understand delayed gratification. If it's faced with the choice of studying, which has a long-term gain because you'll do better in your test and it'll benefit you in the long run, that doesn't seem as attractive as the fun dopamine you'll get right now if you procrastinate. And so it becomes a habit. So the first way to stop procrastination is to actually understand why it's bad. Everyone on YouTube says like, oh, procrastination is bad, guys, you need to stop procrastinating. But the thing is, no one would have stopped smoking if it wasn't proven to like give you cancer, right? But people only want to quit smoking because like it's been proven that it's bad for your health, right? It's going to cause cancer. And so I remember when I was younger, like people would always say like, oh, you shouldn't eat like more than 2 eggs a day. Like red meats are bad, like video games are bad. But I'd always be like that one annoying like guy who'd always be like, okay, but why? Because if I don't understand why it's bad, why would I stop? I like to think of it as a balancing scale. On one side is procrastination, on the other side is studying. And since studying is this big task that we don't want to do, this side's always going to be heavier, and so the procrastination side just comes up and we end up doing that. And that's how we tend to frame the decision, right? Procrastination versus studying. And so procrastination will like be lifted up or like win in a sense all the time. But if you start to frame it like this, it's not actually a case of procrastination versus studying. It's studying versus procrastination, which also lowers your self-discipline, makes it more likely for you to procrastinate in the future. That's a bad tone for the rest of your day. Probably you'll do worse in that test and your parents will also shout at you. You probably have to cram late at night and you'll get less sleep and you'll be grumpy and you'll die early versus studying. And suddenly this side seems less and less attractive and this seems more and more difficult because like as I just outlined, there's so many negatives. And so once that starts to go down, studying is suddenly much easier. The only reason people try to not do bad habits is because they're thinking of the negative. If you smoke, you get cancer. So getting cancer isn't worth like smoking for a lot of people. That's why they make that decision. So the action step for you is to think about reasons why you don't want to procrastinate. And this is called acrasia. Acrasia loosely means doing things against your better judgment, whether choosing to follow a problematic impulse for an instant reward or choosing to avoid an important task and so on. And some experts even suggest that it represents a conflict between your future and present selves. We have trouble acting in ways that benefit our future selves, but not necessarily our present selves. Next time you feel like procrastinating, use this like weighing scale analogy and really like go into like third person and like see yourself from an outside perspective. Say it out loud. If I study right now, the benefits, well, I'll do better in the test. Or I can procrastinate right now and like suffer all the consequences of like lower discipline. My parents will be proud crowd, I get less sleep, etc, etc. Make it as unattractive as possible, and that's one of like the principles for breaking a bad habit, as James Clear talks about. Just making like an AFK decision based on emotions is what leads us to procrastinate in the first place. Imagine like if you ask like me or like your parents or like an outside like person, oh, should I study right now or should I do this right now? They'd obviously like say that you should study because it's a no-brainer decision. One harms your life and one benefits your life. But for you, because you're clouded by emotions and you're trying to make the decision like based on what you're feeling, that's when you tend to make the wrong decision. Always ask yourself, like, this is the kind of practice you can do. Like, what would J Spark say like if I asked him, or what would like my parents say? And that's a really easy way to try and make it so that you think one more step before you do procrastination. Chapter 2 is disliking the task you want to complete. And just a quick announcement. It's proven that when you have something else to focus on, it's much easier to stop procrastination. And so maybe it's time for you to start focusing on your universities. Do you think you could get into a top tier university? As you guys know, getting into university is becoming even more competitive and more demanding. And in case you missed the news from my previous video, I've got something very exciting coming up for everyone thinking about university, especially if you're aiming for a top one. And trust me, you don't want to miss this, because on the 4th of August, 4 PM BST, London time, I'm hosting a free class with my man Coletto, who goes to Princeton University, one of the top in the world, and we'll give you guys 3 secrets about how you can get into your top dream university. Things like how the application game is changing, what universities are truly looking for, and everything you need to set yourself apart from the competition. I'm talking about secrets that the admissions officer that comes into your school will talk about in like 3 years time when it's too late. So you want to get into your dream uni, whether it's in the UK or the US, make sure to reserve your seat for completely free via the link in the description and pinned comments. And Coletto and I will catch you there. Anyway, back to the video. A lot of the time we procrastinate because we don't like the task. I used to set an alarm to wake up at 5 every single Saturday morning. Why? To watch cartoons. Because that was the one day my parents allowed me to wake up early to watch the cartoons. The thing is, the cartoons would start at 6. So I wake up at 5 and drag all my like blankets downstairs, get ready to like watch them, like not even miss a second because I was that motivated. It's a funny story, but the point is, you're never going to procrastinate a task that you look forward to. It's the same with video games, or I don't know, whatever you like find fun, making sandcastles or something. Like, you're not going to procrastinate or put that off. Although we can't make studying as fun as those actions, we can leverage it to not procrastinate as much. Firstly, instead of thinking about how much time studying is going to take, think of it about how fast you can do it. A mindset I really like is always thinking about, all right, I need to study, but it's only going to take like 30 minutes. Like, when you frame it as an only, like this is like the magic word, that's when it's so much easier to do. Like, imagine like you think like, oh, study's going to take so long, like this YouTube script's going to take ages to script. Suddenly you feel extra lazy and you don't want to do it, and you're going to procrastinate even more. You start thinking like that, you're dreading the task, and dread, not looking forward to the task, is what exasperates the procrastination cycle. Start to think of it like this. Okay, if I lock in, it's only going to take 30 minutes. Only is the magic word. It tells your brain that the task isn't actually that scary. You can do it quick. It's also an extra tip because you can try and like make a competition to see how fast you can complete that task, and it's improving your efficiency when doing tasks. You start to practice Parkinson's law, which tells you that the tasks fills the allocated time. If you tell yourself that this studying session is going to take ages, it will take ages. Whereas if you like tell yourself that it's only going to take an hour, you will get the exact same quality study session done in an hour. Sounds crazy, but that's Parkinson's law for you. Also, another tip, like self-improvement YouTubers are going to come at me with pitchforks for this, but tell yourself that you'll play like video games, scroll, whatever you want to do, but after the task. The way I see social media and video games, like these are things that are harmful if they're like taking up time where you should be like studying, and they're like spontaneity, like disrupting your flow. Like as you're studying, you're checking your phone. But if you say, I'm just gonna study, and then for the rest of like the afternoon I could play video games, you're leveraging that same looking forward to emotion, but you're linking the habits of studying to that emotion. And James Clear of Atomic Habits actually calls this batching, so it isn't like that BS. Once that easy habit of playing video games and that hard habit gets stacked, eventually when you want to play video games, you will also study, and that's a win. The third chapter is believing that you're gonna fail. Lastly, procrastination happens when you believe that you're gonna fail. I read this in a book, and it was kind of like this sculptor got commissioned by the king to like make a statue of like this angel from a block of marble. And as he stares at like the massive block of marble, he thinks like, oh, what if I mess up? What if I fail? Like, oh, like all the thoughts are going through his head. Like, what if I mess up this massive, grandiose piece of marble? We have to start to break the task down. When the man said, all right, let me just like get my tools out and then like kind of sketch on the thing with a pencil what I want it to look like. And suddenly he has like a brief outline, and it's not perfect. He's one step closer, and he realizes, oh, actually, I have a really good vision. And so then he gets like his tools, and then he says, oh, okay, let me just carve out like a foot. And he like makes like the foot, and then he realizes the bigger picture started to come together. When you go step by step and you actually take action, it's far easier to do it. And the hardest step about like going from resting, procrastinating to studying is actually just that, going from procrastinating to studying. And actually, as you like start to get into the flow of studying, you realize it's not that bad, right? And so once you start to take it step by step and break down the task, it's far easier to do. The single big step is scary, but once you do that, it's kind of like that snowball. It's hard to make like the initial ball, but once you start to roll it down on the hill, what happens? Like it goes like that, right? And then the ball becomes really big. And so that was how to stop procrastination. If you want further help and you really want to like lock in, become the best student, and you want to really eradicate procrastination from your life, learn how to study in minimal time, join my Student Accelerator program, and you can find out more about that first link in the description. And as always, take action, and I'll see you next time.